بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-'aliyyil 'azim. Wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah, we will begin, inshallah, with the recitation of ayat of the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah that is around the topic of fasting. So it's only proper, inshallah, that we read those verses, and then we will speak about, inshallah, the inner dimensions of fasting. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون صدق الله العظيم والحمد لله. Inshallah, in these verses that we will begin to discuss on fasting and Ramadan, these ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah, beginning with Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam, it starts in ayah 183, highlight for us the importance of fasting in the month of Ramadan. So what I like to do, inshallah, is speak a little bit about Ramadan, speak a little bit about fasting and its virtues, and then speak about the different levels of fasting in our beautiful tradition. Alhamdulillah, as you all know, we are in the month of Sha'ban. And this month is a special month because it is narrated that this is the month in which our deeds are presented before Allah. Now, all the time, Allah Ta'ala knows all of our deeds, but there's a formal presentation by the angels. This occurs daily, it occurs weekly, and it occurs yearly. And the Prophet ﷺ used to often fast this month quite a bit. And it was the month that was often neglected, as we are probably neglecting it ourselves. Some of the righteous used to say that Rajab, which is a sacred month, there are 4 months that are sacred. The month of Rajab, which occurs by itself, and then Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah and Muharram, which come consecutively after Ramadan. Right? After Ramadan, we have Shawwal, and then we have Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah. Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and Dhul Hijjah are actually Ayyam al-Hajj, which in those times, these 70 days, if you come up with enough money to be able to go to Hajj, then Hajj becomes fard upon an individual to do so. So these are all very special times that we're always in. And the believer always has to be aware of the time that we are in, right? You should be aware of the month. You should be aware of the day, because there's always special days, special times that are constantly coming up. For example, Friday is a day we need to be conscious from, even from Thursday afternoon, such that when we enter the evening, which would for us be Thursday night, However, that will be Laylatul Jum'ah, and then we would take the most advantage of the Laylatul Jum'ah and then the day of Jum'ah. One of the great scholars, Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, mentions that one should take extra effort in getting his clothes ready for Friday before the sunset of Laylatul Jum'ah, such that he doesn't waste any of his time. So there's a great scholar by Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali who has a book called the Ta'if al-Ma'arif, which goes through each month and what is sacred and special about it, and then also the seasons. For example, winter being more beloved to the Prophet ﷺ than summer, because the nights were long for worship and his days were shorter and much more facilitative for fasting. So many of us love different times of the year for different reasons, but those reasons should really be related to our worship and our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nonetheless, Rajab was also a month in which the scholars of the Salaf used to say it's a month of planting. And Sha'ban is a month of watering, while Ramadan is a time of harvest. So it's not too late. This is actually very early Sha'ban. We're not even halfway through, and halfway through also there's a special night and time that inshallah, if we have time, we might speak about. But then as we enter into closer to Ramadan, our dua is and should be, Allahumma ballighna Ramadan. Oh Allah, make us to reach the month of Ramadan. Now, the month of Ramadan is something that the early pious scholars of the Salaf used to make dua for 6 months before Ramadan. Allahumma ballighna Ramadan, because of its, oh Allah, let us reach the month of Ramadan, because of its virtue, because of its greatness with Allah, and how much good and barakah and blessings and mercy that are in this blessed month. Nobody wants to ever miss the blessed month of Ramadan. For many people, Ramadan, as it first comes, many of us start to feel the pinch on our nafs that we can have our routines of everyday eating, having coffee or tea, whatever routines you have. But at the same time, very shortly thereafter, the pleasure of withholding and fasting become very dear to us. So we ask Allah Ta'ala to give us the best of openings and to inspire us with the inspiration of the early predecessors, and to accept from us the best of what we do and overlook our wrongs and shortcomings before we enter that month. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. So as we, inshallah, speak about Ramadan, these verses start with Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, fasting is prescribed upon you, meaning made obligatory upon you, as it was to those before you. And we're going to come and touch upon this subject quite a bit. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, in order that you may gain taqwa. We're going to come back to taqwa a little bit later. That in order that we gain taqwa. So one of the primary objectives of fasting is to attain this noble and virtuous quality that Allah has praised throughout the Quran. Inna Allaha ma'al ladhina taqaw. Allah is with the people of taqwa. When people in the next world traverse through the bridge called the Sirat, or the bridge over hell, and some scholars would say through hell, Allah says, ثُمَّ نُنَجِّي الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا. Then we will only save the people of taqwa. So taqwa is a very, very important quality that whoever possesses it will get their rewards of their deeds multiplied, their sins forgiven, their hardships in this world alleviated and removed, and that they will become beloved to Allah. Allah will be with them. Allah will assist them. Allah will help them. Allah will give them victory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them always a way out from even where they did not anticipate. Hence, we can say this quality alone, if the ummah as a whole embodied it, Allah would remove all of the hardships and difficulties that surround our lives. In fact, much of our hardships and difficulties is because we lack taqwa. We lack the depth of taqwa. And so, inshallah, we're going to return to this in a bit So Allah Ta'ala then says, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ. These are a limited number of days. We have 12 months of the year. We are asked to fast one. And this one, any one of us who fasted, unless you're a brand new Muslim this year, we know how quickly it goes. It starts off a bit slow. All of a sudden, things start going quick. And then by the time you even think about it, it's halfway through Ramadan. All of a sudden, you're in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. You try to make the best of it. And before you know it, it's Eid, right? And that's how quick it'll go. It goes by really quickly. Ayyam ma'dudat. So these are a short number of fixed days. And Allah Ta'ala then mentions that, but whoever is ill or on a journey, and he mentions this in the next verse, وَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ. These are two reasons why people do not need to fast. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ. So whoever is sick or ill, such that their illness, if they fasted, would make things worse or would prolong them getting better, they don't need to fast, but they would make up that day later. They do not pay, the expiation. Rather, they wait until there's another day in which they can fast. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Then make it up from other days. So you can do that in the winter. You can do that whenever the time is right. And inshallah, you get the reward due to you being sick. And if you are on a travel, literally the ayah says, وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ. So hence, if you're traveling, you need to be on the actual travel before Fajr starts in order to be exempt that day from fasting. But if you're already on a travel, say from Los Angeles, you went to New York, you're already there, you're on a travel. Does that mean you don't fast? No, it means you are recommended to fast. However, it is permissible not to fast if the journey is something that brings you, you need the energy, you need the strength. Even then, one should not fast, but do it privately, not go in public in the restaurants and order food in front of the masses and stuff like that. This is discouraged. Rather, one should privately and quietly not fast if that's the case. It depends on a person's health. It depends on the person's work. It depends on the person, the individual circumstance that it entails. However, you're definitely recommended to fast. وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. But if you fast, it is better for you if you only but knew. So inshallah, this is great good. So Allah Ta'ala then in the next ayah, I'm just going to move forward, says, شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. This is one of the most beautiful elements of fasting, that Ramadan, as you all know, is the month in which the Quran was revealed. This, as you know, is the month of the Quran. Shahru Ramadan. This is what makes this blessed month so blessed, because of the Quran. The mass recitation of the Quran by communities, by the huffaz in our communities, leading Taraweeh prayers, masajid, homes, individuals, communities. Everyone is finally returning to the recitation of the Quran, although normally all year they may have been very negligent of it and basically not adhering to it. So it's a time we must return to the Quran. If you do not know Arabic, there's not a better time to start than right now, immediately, so that you can, inshallah, get to the point where maybe you can listen to the Quran at a very slow speed and you can start reading along, inshallah, until you're able to read and recite the beautiful Quran. This is something that every Muslim should long to do. So Allah says in this month, the Quran was revealed, بَيِّنَاتٍ مِنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. It's a guidance for mankind and clear proofs for guidance and the criterion, that which differentiates between right and wrong. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ. Whoever sights then, meaning the new moon, the month has started, then they should fast. And whoever's ill or on a journey, then the same number of days from other days after Ramadan. Allah intends for you ease. He does not want to make things difficult for you. He wants that you complete the same number of days and that you must then magnify Allah. وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ. This is something that is very, very important, my brothers and sisters, which is we are magnifying Allah that He guided us, that He guided us to Islam, that He is allowing those that fast to fast. If you cannot fast, that He allows you to pay the expiation, so that, those who are ill with an illness they never intend to get better on, or they have no hope of really getting better from, like a permanent sickness or illness, then they pay for each day that they don't fast a certain amount of roughly $6 or $7 per day to those who are poor, and that would cover their days of fasting, inshallah. But this is all by the tawfiq of Allah, because there's nothing that should be more blessed, more honorable, more joyous in the heart of the believer than guidance. And by guidance, we also mean not only the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that Allah has granted you His love, and that Allah has granted us the love of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the love of righteous good deeds, the longing for Ramadan. There are people that don't even long for Ramadan. There are going to be people that don't even know, even Muslim, that Ramadan is approaching, that Ramadan is here. Imagine a whole week could go by and there be some Muslims that will find out, oh, subhanAllah, it's Ramadan, already a weekend. This is utter loss. This is utter loss, because there's a tradition narrated that on the first night of Ramadan, part of a hadith that says 5 things that are given to the Prophet ﷺ that no prophet before in any ummah was given. One of them, that Allah will gaze upon the ummah on the first night of Ramadan. And when Allah gazes upon someone, then that means that He will never punish them. This gaze of Allah is basically where Allah finds us in some act of obedience in the first night of Ramadan. What is more blessed than to prepare for the fasting the next day, to begin on Taraweeh, and of course, Fara'id come first, Salat al-Maghrib and Isha, and the sunnahs that go along with it, and then the start of Taraweeh, the Juz al-Awwal, the first part of the Quran, Surah al-Baqarah. As you first hear Surah al-Baqarah in the beginning of Ramadan, you're always reminded that here we go again, right? The blessed story starts again. And it's about, the first 20 ayahs, what Allah speaks about, the believers, the hypocrites, right? The disbelievers, the hypocrites. Then on to the story of Adam and Eve, alayhim as-salam. And then on to the story of Shaitan, on to the story of Bani Israel. And then Surah Al Imran to the story of the the Nasara. Then Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. And on we go through this beautiful journey of the Quran, so that the first night we must find ourselves longing to be of those whom Allah gazes upon. So a dua. There are 4 things that must be like basically a litany. You have 4 things must be circling around. If you have options, there's 4 things that you're always clicking on as acts of worship in case you get tired, in case you get bored, because unfortunately the human being, we get bored, right? And this is highlighted by some of the great scholars in their work on spirituality. But number 1, seeking knowledge. This is the best act to do during Ramadan. So seeking knowledge, and then recitation of the Quran. So you have your litany, you have your wadifa. Different cultures have different ways, or the Afghani say wazifa, right? You have different things that you would read, and you would, istighfar, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. There are 4 things in one hadith that is highlighted. I'm going to be going through a lot of things quickly. You can watch the recording later, or you can take really good notes pretty quickly. There are 4 things that must be done in Ramadan, 2 of which is to ask Allah for Jannah and to seek refuge from the fire. The other 2 dhikr that we must do is lots of istighfar and the recitation of the kalima tayyiba, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, and to know the deeper meanings of la ilaha illallah, which also means Muhammadur Rasulullah, which also means Sayyidina Isa Ruhullah, which also means Sayyidina Musa Kalimullah, which also means, that all of the prophets were sent by Allah, that there is a hereafter, there's a day of judgment. All that is inclusive in the realities of saying La ilaha illallah, that Islam, this beautiful religion we're gifted, is the truth. And when we utter La ilaha illallah, we should know that whoever says La ilaha illallah will enter paradise. And the utterance of La ilaha illallah is one that strengthens our faith, that removes and dispels any weaknesses or viruses or sickness in our heart. And that is astaghfirullah and istighfar. This is the time, my brothers and sisters, to clean up our records. So nonetheless, the beautiful Quran is revealed, and then the other two. So with the seeking knowledge, reciting the Quran, doing dhikr, wala dhikrullahi akbar. Dhikr is the greatest of all acts, and we can speak about the virtues of dhikr. Um, there was a beautiful Sheikh named Sheikh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda in his commentary Risalat al-Mustarshideen, which is translated by Imam Zaid Shakir. In there, he doesn't list 100, but there are 100 benefits that Imam al-Dhahabi, I believe, numbers the 100 benefits of dhikr of Allah. That would be a wonderful topic for something of the future. But 100 benefits of dhikr of Allah. Of course, Quran is dhikr. Recitation of La ilaha illallah, astaghfirullah is dhikr. But you can also include in it Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. One of the things that the scholars highlight when we're trying to be like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we're going to try to do everything he did. I know that's easy said than done, but we don't want to limit ourselves to one kind of dhikr. We want to do all the things that is narrated from our blessed master and the best of mankind, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A beautiful book on that is the book of Imam Nawawi called Kitab al-Adhkar, the book of remembrance, which is translated in English. Don't have my copy next to me, but it's a very thick, beautiful book that one could also use Ramadan and review and do some dhikr. And then also reflection. وَأَفْضَلُ الْعِبَادَةُ تَفَكَّرُوا. The best of worship is reflection. How do you reflect? You would sit wherever you want, however you want. You can go for a walk where you exercise your body as well as reflect. You can take some prayer beads with you. You can take the counters, whatever you want. You go for a walk and you reflect on the stars. You reflect on nature. You reflect on the reality of this world. On the day of judgment, you reflect on all these things that are big matters in which big things will be judged upon, like the day of judgment, Yawm al-Qiyamah, the eternality of heaven and hell. These realities need to be reflected upon, right? The Prophet Muhammad SAW was very reflective. And the Shama'il of Imam al-Tirmidhi, which describes him, they often found him in deep thought and reflection, deep in pondering the greatness of Allah, the reality of the hereafter, ways to benefit the Muslims. Much was in his blessed thoughts when he would sit alone. But when people came, he would smile at them, he would be with them, he would be a mercy to them, he would treat them gently and kindly, and would speak about whatever they were speaking about, and he would eat with them, and he would make things light for them, not to overburden them, because he is mercy. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So nonetheless, you have dhikr, you have reflection, you have reading, and then also something we often neglect. If you are with your mother and your father, that the best worship, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah has declared that you worship none but Him, and to your parents you are showing filial piety, excellence, constant excellence. So if you can serve them, you can be a benefit to them, you can help them, make dua for them, make them to be happy with you. This is the best of worship one could do during this time. So a part of khidmah, if you are cooking in Ramadan, let not your cooking be for no reason. Let your cooking be for Allah. So when you cut the onions, you do dhikr, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Right now I can do 10, I can recite Qul Huwallahu Ahad 10 times, which Imam Ibn Kathir narrates. Whoever reads it 10 times gets a palace in Jannah. I'm going to get 2 palaces with my cutting onions. I will get my 100 salawat on when I'm cooking. Whoever reads 100 salawat on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 30 of his needs of this world will be covered, and 70 of his other worldly needs will be covered. And if you know Quran, then this is the month of Quran. Why not keep reading? Fatiha, Qul Huwallahu Ahad. We should know that the last end surahs of the Quran, such as قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ, holds a fourth of the entire Quran in reward. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ holds a third of the entire Quran in recitation. إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرَ holds a massive reward. Al-Hakim al-Takathur holds what would be better than even reading 1,000 ayat of the Quran. إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا chapter 99 holds 1/2 of the Quran in its reward. And the ulama say in the end of time, when our time, we are so busy with everything else, do those dhikrs that will be short but magnified in reward, because we need it. right? The early people used to do khatam after khatam. We won't be able to do that. Rather, we can read those shorter surahs that have immense amount of reward, at least to make part of our daily litany in Ramadan, recitation of those Mubarak, beautiful surahs of the Quran. So with that, how can one get tired or get bored, and also listening to the Quran? If you can listen to the whole Quran during Ramadan, this is Mubarak. And if you can recite the entire Quran, this should be our goal, right? This should be our goal that, oh Allah, I'm going to finish the Quran at least once. Fine, you can't read it, then listen to it. That's a khatam, right? Pray in the masjid if you're able to and stay with the khatam. This is extremely blessed. It's Mubarak the whole time you're standing. So these are all highly rewarded, inshallah. So وَلِتُكَبِّرُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. And that you're grateful. We are so grateful to Allah that He's allowed us to be Muslim. What's a greater blessing than that? We are so grateful to Allah to allow us to reach and to practice this beautiful faith in Ramadan. There is a gate in the hereafter that is called the gate of Rayyan. And no one will enter this blessed gate of Jannah except those who fasted. And the last one that fasted, once they enter, no one else will ever enter through that gate. There are 8 gates of Jannah. Now, we might not make it through one gate. We might not make it through 2. Inshallah, we'll make it at least through 1 gate, but we can maybe make it through 4 gates or 5 gates. Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam an incredible question. He said, Ya Rasulullah, is there any that will be able to enter through all 8 gates? He said, yes, and I'm hoping that you're going to be among them, Abu Bakr. And of course, he's the best of the Muslims after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by consensus of the masses of the Muslims. So he will enter through every gate. Well, we enter through 5 gates. For many of us, I think if we can even enter through 1 gate, then we will be happy because at least we get to paradise. Inshallah, our aspiration should be higher, but many of us, we may not have a lot of other good deeds other than fasting. So then fasting becomes very dear to us and we have to hold on to it. Now, the definition of fasting, we're going to go through all of this. Inshallah, bidnillah. He says, one definition given is وَهُوَ الْإِمْسَاكُ نَهَارًا عَنْ شَهْوَةِ الْبَطْنِ وَالْفَرَجِ مَعَ النِّيَّةِ. It is the abstention, the refraining during the day from the 2 appetites of the stomach and the private parts, accompanied with intention. That is the base amount of what fasting is, that nothing goes into your mouth or through a cavity that will reach either your stomach or your brain. A shot that you get in your body stays in the bloodstream, doesn't reach the stomach. That's not an issue, or taking blood out. The issue is taking in substance, either through the nose or the mouth or the nose. For example, water. If you accidentally get water that comes through here and then seeps through to the throat and then goes down into the past the throat, that would accidentally break your fast if you did that accidentally. So you have to be very careful, right? You have to be careful. And that's a whole other topic, which we're not going into, the fiqh of fasting, inshallah. If anybody's interested, inshallah, I'm sure you have resources to do that. But that's extremely important to review, right? To review the fiqh of fasting, just so you're ready and nothing skips you, inshallah, and you are up to date with it. And so the intention, these are very important just to mention. Intention should be made in the night before the day. Okay, that is what all scholars would agree on. The intention of making the fasting the night before. If you don't get up for suhoor or you slept through fajr, it doesn't affect the validity of the fast as long as you made your intention in the night before. Some scholars will actually allow the fasting intention to be made even during the morning, as long as you have not done anything to break your fast, such as eating or drinking or anything else. And you have what is called until Dahwat al-Kubra, midday between Fajr and Maghrib. Break that in half. A little before that, you have until that time. Is that the preferred time? By no means. However, say someone woke up, they got a phone call, hey, it's Ramadan. Oh, I haven't drank, I haven't ate. Khalas, I'm going to fast Ramadan today. That would be valid. Okay, so that's the intention, and that's very important. The fasting has a beautiful hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that كل عمل ابن آدم له إلا الصوم. And this comes from a hadith Qudsi, where the Prophet said what Allah has said to him, apart from the Quran. These are prophetic tradition that the Prophet ﷺ narrated from Allah outside the Quran, called Hadith Qudsi. That Allah says, كل عمل ابن آدم له إلا الصوم. All of the children of Adam's deeds are for him except fasting. فإنه لي, for it is for me, وأنا أجزي به, and I will reward him for it. And that every good deed that a human being does is for from 10 to 700 times except fasting. For angels are told not to write the reward of fasting. Fasting, Allah says, is for me and I will reward it. So therefore, no one really knows how much reward Allah will give for fasting. And that is a fast done correctly, done according to the Sharia, that no one violates the sanctity of the fast. That's why we're here tonight, to talk about these levels, inshallah, and so that we can attain the most excellent, the fast of the righteous. Not just fasting, but the fast of the righteous. Even in this hadith, it mentions that verily the smell that naturally emits from the fasting person's mouth is better or more fragrant to Allah than the smell of musk. So this is something that is very beautiful. On the virtues of Ramadan, um, there's a question here, just really quick, we'll pass through. Does the intention in the morning apply to nafil fasting as well? Yes, it does, right? For nafil fasting and for fast of Ramadan, according to the Hanafi school, that would be valid. According to other imams, no, the intention has to be made for Ramadan, as I mentioned the night before, and that is better. That is absolutely what all of us should do. And you know, if you brush your teeth at night, you have some water, that's normally intention right there. You're going to fast tomorrow. Oh, I better grab some water before I go to bed in case I don't get up. That's intention. It's not laying in bed before you go to sleep. Oh Allah, I intend to fast tomorrow from the month of Ramadan, from the fara'id. No, they're natural things you do. You get up suhoor, you drink some water, fall asleep. That's naturally intention. Okay, so that's important to note. Now, there's a beautiful hadith. In fact, there are a few of them. There's one that says, "Man sama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi." Whoever fasts in Ramadan with sincere faith, meaning they have absolute conviction in the promise of Allah, seeking His reward, meaning they only do it for the sake of Allah. They do it, they believe in Allah, they're sincere with Allah, and they want their reward with Allah, will have all of their previous sins forgiven. غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِ. Okay? Then there's one that mentions مَنْ قَامَ رَمَضَانَ إِيمَانًا وَاحْتِسَابًا غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِ. So whoever stands in the nights of Ramadan, although it's sunnah, nonetheless they're standing in the nights. And here, the ulama say also, apart from qama, to stand in the nights and pray, also means bringing life to the night by worship. And the nights of Ramadan are better, more rewarded than the days of Ramadan. Both are very blessed, but the nights are even more emphasized than its days, okay? And then we also have man qama laylatul qadr. Whoever stands in the nights of Laylatul Qadr will have all of their sins forgiven. Angels ask Allah to forgive the fasting person in the day and the night. And also ants. And all this khair is coming to the fasting person. Your du'as are answered while you're fasting. Your du'as are answered when you break your fast. This is why the scholars, they mention the sequence of these ayahs that we read after Shahru Ramadan. It says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. When my servant asks you concerning me, tell them that I am near. I answer the one who calls upon me, but let them answer me and obey me in order that they're rightly guided. Here, these ayahs that comes right after Ramadan, which is a subtle ishara, indication that the time that you break your fast, du'as are for sure answered. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the fasting person has two joys. The joy when they break their fast and the joy when they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The joy here is not just how food tastes good, naturally that does, but the joy there the scholars mention is being joyous at Allah allowing us a completed fast. That's the joy. So alhamdulillah. And then making dua, oh Allah, accept my fast. It's very important. We may ask Allah to accept our fasting. It's not just that you just have some guarantee. No, we have to really beg Allah and ask Him to accept our fast. This is very important because normal people are concerned with outward actions, but they're not concerned about its acceptability. The righteous and those very near to Allah are more concerned with it being accepted. Not just that you performed it, but did I do it right? Did I do it sincerely? Did I do something that, violated its sanctity, kind of ruined its rewards? Did I take away from the fasting? All of that is a concern for you. So you make that dua, oh Allah, accept it from us. So we see these blessings of this blessed month of Ramadan, alhamdulillah. Now, Imam Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, and some of the scholars highlight three levels of fasting. The fasting of the normal common folk, right? And they are people like us. They fast the bare minimum to what ulama of fiqh would say your fast is valid, such as protecting the two that we mentioned in the definition of fasting, denying the stomach and the private parts from its haram. So not eating anything, drinking anything, or doing something that breaks the fast. So the fast at a basic bare minimum level, you've got it done. That's the fast of the common folk. The fast of the elect is a little more than that. The fast of the elect, they do that, but they protect their eyes from looking at anything that is haram. They protect their ears from listening to anything that is haram. So they protect their ears by listening to Quran, by listening to Islamic lecture. They prevent their ears from listening to music. They prevent their ears from listening to ghiba and namima and tale-bearing and lies and foul speech. It doesn't need to only be music, but it can also be poetry that has no benefit in it, uses foul words, calls you to the disobedience of Allah, things like that. You're protecting your ear from anything that there's no benefit in it, right? And the eyes from looking at anything seductive, looking at anything haram. This would ruin the rewards of fasting, right? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one hadith mentioned that there are some that get nothing out of their fasting except hunger, and who get nothing out of their standing in the night except restlessness, just being up, meaning the fruit of these acts of worship is not there. And the fruit here again being taqwa, right? So inshallah, we're going to get to that. So they protect their ears, they protect their eyes, they protect their tongues from haram. Now, many ulama mention that the most important limb in your entire body, of course, the heart is the central command, but it is the tongue. Because all of the limbs every day say to the tongue, fear Allah concerning us. If you go right, we will follow you. But if you are crooked or you go astray, we will follow you. So the tongue is the imam of the rest of the limbs, and the tongue is the interpreter of what's in the heart. And what's in the heart, its signs will manifest in the limbs. So when our limbs are involved in haram, that means there's a sickness in our heart. And the ulama say that the priority in our Islamic rectification and tazkiyat an-nafs, purification of the soul, purification of the heart, starts with the outward to make sure the outward conforms to the Sharia. Once you do that, then Islah, rectification of the inward, starts to occur, where then you get inner wonderful qualities, qualities of taqwa, qualities of reliance upon Allah, tawakkul, qualities of shukr, of gratitude, quality of sabr, and many other noble, virtuous qualities that start to kind of develop within the human being, because he's protecting this the palace, you can say, the palace which is his heart, from the enemies that are trying to break through to his fortress. So we have the tongue. The biggest thing is lying, speaking about somebody else, billah, ghiba, they call that, namima, telling stories of others, what they did and said, using foul words, lying, saying things that you don't have knowledge about, many other things that are prohibited upon the tongue, treating people with abuse, saying harsh things to human beings and hurting their feelings. Abusing and hurting people with the tongue is not something light. It's haram. And many of the sins actually of the tongue are considered kaba'ir, major sins. Now, just as a review for anybody who's new, there's a hadith that mentions Salat al-Jum'ah to Jum'ah, Ramadan to Ramadan, and Umrah to Umrah is kafara, expiation for what is between them. Okay? For what is between them. Got it. What is between them. So, in order to get the full benefits of all these forgiveness, we have to stay away from major sins. Okay? So, that includes the tongue, the hands from stealing, the feet to walking towards something haram, and then the private parts and the stomach from consuming the wealth of the orphan, from doing other things haram, and the private parts to do anything other than with the spouse is then haram, and we have to protect that. That's the fast of the elite. Okay, so if we're not taking care of these things, then we're not really fasting in a true fasting way of the elite. We're just doing the basic minimum, but we're not gaining the full fruit of taqwa. And then the highest level, which is really preserved for the Anbiya and the Muqarrabin and those very near to Allah, although we may mimic it in small amounts, which is to fast from everything other than Allah. Maqam al-mushahada, to absolutely be in a witnessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is the highest level of fasting. And really quick, and I'll end with this, inshallah. Ibn Juzay al-Kalbi, one of the great ulama, he brings taqwa into 5 categories. The number 1 is to have taqwa, meaning protection from and staying away from kufr, the taqwa of disbelief, staying away from kufr. Number 2, from falling into sin and staying away from sins, minor or major, all sins. Number 3, staying away from doubtful matters as well. And this is what they call wara. So staying away from doubtful things. Number 4, being cautious of even permissible things in fear that you may either waste your time or fall into disliked matters. And then 5, finally, being cautious of letting anything other than Allah enter your thought and your heart. And there's a dua which we'll end with, inshallah, and I'll share this here in the chat. This is a dua asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for taqwa, because without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help, there's no way that we would achieve this success. And this dua, as I put here, Allahumma inni as'aluka al-huda wa-tuqa wal-afafa wal-ghina. Oh Allah, I ask for your guidance, piety, virtue, and sufficiency. Make this dua, inshallah. I realize I didn't put it for everybody. If you can share that, inshallah. Here. And you can use it, memorize it, inshallah, and read it throughout Ramadan, so that we may, inshallah, have this noble and virtuous quality of taqwa, and we seek the best of the benefits of Ramadan. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.